Bringing messages to people through art is something that I'm really passionate about doing.
They're one of the most endangered groups of birds on the planet.
Tori Clearwater is a Dunedin-based artist with an eye for environmental change. This beach, on her family's farm, is where her journey began.
This beach is so remote that the sea lions and penguins that are out here don't know to fear humans. So coming out here, they barely give me a glance.
At her family's home on the Otago Peninsula is where she stores her art.
The only reason I didn't start collecting bones sooner is because my parents wouldn't let me. This was washed up on the beach and I didn't find out what it was until much later, but I'm sure it's a little blue.
It's her keen eye for anatomy that makes her art special.
So there's from first year to now, it's always animals and stuff that's been real interest to me. Bones. Drawing is a way for me to just stare at it for ages and get my mind kind of thinking about how the body looks. This was the bird that I did the most detailed drawing of when I decided to do my albatross project last year.
At the Royal Albatross Centre fly her most recent sculptures.
So these birds were made out of plastic. There was originally going to be 3, but I was encouraged to do 5. So there was 5 original albatrosses. I got to come here actually while I was making them. We found some regurgitation of the normal squid beaks and stuff. We found a bottle cap, and that was kind of my real oh my god, this is here, it's not an overseas problem, it's here right now for us to deal with. Recorded basically in our birds' stomachs.
But plastics aren't the only threat that seabirds face.
So I guess this was my first in to kind of seeing the fishing industry kind of had anything at all to do with extinction and pollution. So this bird was drowned by longline fish hooks. I was curious to explore other dangers to seabirds for my next work, so I got in touch with a local seabird scientist.
My name's Kalinka. I'm a seabird biologist and I live here in Dunedin. My research focused on a Southern Ocean seabird very heavily affected by fisheries bycatch. That's called the white-chinned petrel. They only breed on subantarctic islands around the Southern Ocean. In the New Zealand region, we've got 3 of our subantarctic islands have white-chinned petrels on them. So New Zealand's the world hotspot for white-chinned petrels in that sense. When they go on a foraging journey, they travel huge distances. If they've got a chick in the burrow that they're trying to feed, they might come all the way up to here from the subantarctic islands, well south of New Zealand, and back again. They might spend a day or 2 over that. And then at the end of the breeding season, once the chick is hopefully fledged at a nice fat weight and is flown away from the breeding island, the parents take a break from New Zealand and a big downwards loop towards Antarctica and then up towards the coast of southern South America. And again, they don't make landfall, they just hang out at sea. So they're affected by marine pollution, our commercial fisheries, climate change, and the changing impacts on their prey and on the wind and on the weather.
Kalinka wanted to show me what seabirds we could find just off the coast of Dunedin.
The fun thing is looking out behind fishing boats, because of course our seabirds know very well about fishing boats. I can see 2 dots. 2 dots. 2 dots, flying dots, or water dots? No, water dots, I see them now. That's a penguin. Is it? Wait, hang on, maybe it's not. Whee!
That's how I like to play.
Nice. Hey, buddies. Wow. This is pretty cool.
Oh, look, he's flying.
Yeah, nice. No, that's some serious takeoff effort. Yep.
There's a lot of wildlife we just don't really see because it's 100 metres offshore, and it's just so close.
Tori has signed up to participate in the Art and Oceans exhibition to raise awareness about seabird mortality.
So I was down in the garage and I noticed there was some fishing line, so I asked my dad if I could use that for my art project. I was fiddling around and I found that the hooks might be quite a cool medium to work with to make a bird. I've just got to figure out how I can perhaps weld them together, which will give me some more options.
The biggest issue that we're battling is what we can do about birds getting tangled in fishing gear directly. So it's mostly hooks that are the issue. It's tangling in the lines as well. And then the bird drowns because unfortunately they're not like our marine mammals and they can't deal very well with being underwater.
Living in this environment is tough, so when a chance comes along, the birds take it.
As a seabird, I look at a fishing boat and I think, great, there's potential here to get a meal from the discards. That's really attractive. And if the birds are going for this, they might not be paying as much attention to staying out of the way.
Staggering numbers of seabirds are killed every year through interaction with fishing vessels.
Fishermen don't want to catch seabirds on their fishing gear, but accidental bycatch is a really big problem. What can we do about birds getting tangled in fishing gear directly?
So I've got a bit of a plan. It's because these birds can dive down that they are at greater risk of getting hooked. So that's the idea I'm kind of working with. I think I'm going to make a diving petrel. This photo is a nice reference to the body and form I'm looking at. Basically, I'm making the skeleton at the moment based on the real bird measurements I got from Kalinka, and this will all hopefully help me to form the basis of the sculpture.
Half of New Zealand's native birds are seabirds, of which a third are found nowhere else in the world.
New Zealand's a really special place for seabirds because they're one of the most endangered groups of birds on the planet. You have more seabirds in terms of numbers overall, but also in terms of numbers of species than any other place. You know, we've got the Southern Ocean right on our doorstep. Our seabirds are a little bit out of sight, out of mind. They're right there, but you know, we don't get to interact with them very much when we're just living our day-to-day lives on land.
Tori has come to the exhibition space for the first time to decide where her art will be displayed.
Yes, there's lots of other artists around me. I don't know all of their names or even any of them at all or what they're doing.
Our seabirds are a really, really large part of the Southern Ocean and Southern Hemisphere. To be able to have a piece of artwork that brings seabirds a little bit closer to people's everyday lives, I think is really important.
Hey look, there's a hook. That's handy. Shall we go here? Where on earth am I going to put my description for my work if it's hanging from the ceiling? There's no point in having it too high, then people can't see it. Look in place. Lighting. Lighting is the next thing. For the opening night especially, it'll be quite a nice, like, real downward shadow that should give. I think that's where I want to go.
So I've got the skeleton of my sculpture, and now I'm giving it its wings. I've been spending a bit of time on my granddad's beach lately. It's made me more aware that hooks are just a small part of something bigger and much more complex.
Anything that floats is going to get carried by currents, which, because of the nature of oceanic currents, eventually accumulate in some spots.
Each wave that's coming in is bringing in a line of microplastics and other sea debris.
This one's actually recognisable. It's like the top of a lid.
The only way this could have got here is from the sea. No one else is here.
Tori's latest work, inspired by plastic, is also designed to communicate threats to the marine ecosystem.
So each tile represents 100,000 tonnes, and that's how much plastic is entering the ocean every year. The plastic problem is something that's been driving my work for a while now.
I don't know what that is. Something blown off the land?
Have to get closer before we can really tell. Just a small bag, I guess. This has just come out of the harbour. It's like bigger than me.
It is true that these are all merged problems. I mean, you can't separate one from the other. You can't say, oh, it's climate change and oh, it's fisheries. It's plastics and climate change and fisheries and.
Yeah, and how do you depict that in art? Because how do you even get people to understand that it's like this interlinked, interwebbed problem? Like,
We can't see the boats from land, but here's the evidence that they're out there. This fishing line's tangled up. I can't even get it out. How do you communicate the scale of the problem? So with petrels, it's like every year, like a small kitchen is filled with dead bodies. Like, how can you depict that? And goodness knows how many pieces of plastic are on this beach at the moment. It's not been this bad before.
this is bad. How do you pick up things off the beach when they become this small?
Makes me realise why I'm doing it. This bag's got less plastic in it than the last time I was here, but in a way it contains much more. If I can find it here, then it's in the fish, seals, penguins, and of course many other seabirds.
Everywhere I look,
This artwork, made from Dunedin beach plastic, represents 15% of her body mass, the same amount that was found in one chick.
And once you see it on a human scale, it becomes a lot more powerful, it becomes a lot more real. So there's so many things I could explore. 20, 30 years of work even. A lot more plastic I need to collect and take out of this environmental cycle.
And many more things I want to say.
Seabirds like the white-chinned petrel, but also some of our other seabirds, they remind me that it's actually quite a small neighbourhood and they're using all of it. Everything is just one connected system and we're all part of a system that's much, much smaller than we tend to think when we're sitting on land in a town in our homes.
The ocean is something that I am totally scared of and in awe of, but it's finally humans, I think, are starting to realise that our impact is beyond our control sometimes.
Fisheries management practices are in place to help minimise seabird mortality.
There's been a lot of work in this around the planet, also here in New Zealand, is trying to understand how we can reduce the attractiveness of boats to our seabirds in the first place.
Different methods can be used depending on the type of fishing.
Putting big weights on the fishing gear so that it sinks away from the surface a little bit quicker, then you reduce the chance that they're going to be affected. In some cases it's a device that a boat can string behind, flap around and keep the birds away from the particularly risky zone where the fishing gear enters the water.
Storing waste on the boat prevents it being thrown overboard where it will attract and endanger seabirds.
Seabirds like the white-chinned petrel, but also some of our other seabirds, they remind me that it's actually quite a small neighbourhood and they're using all of it. But it's not just seabirds that do that, that's our whales, that's some of our seals. There's a lot of different species for whom it's all just part of the one neighbourhood. So our political boundaries are very useful and very human. It's hard to separate things when you start to think of it that way.
I'm back in the studio for the next phase of my sculpture. I'm using plaster to make a mould of the clay bird, which will be like a template that I can use to weld into.
Ready?
I got one chance at getting it right before the plaster hardens, making it difficult to work with. If I get this bit wrong, I'll have to start again. I'm really inspired by using scientific data to create something that means something to the average person that they can see. Here we go, moment of truth. I've been collecting these hooks over the last few months. My grandfather actually gave me a lot of them. There's just over 350, which represent only 3 months of white-chinned petrel captures.
The hook is what brought that fish to the surface that can then be gutted and stuff goes overboard that the birds can benefit from. But equally is that same hook that could kill this animal potentially. This piece of art brings all of those aspects together and a little bit closer to people's everyday lives, I think is really important.
The sculpture is called Are You Hooked Yet?
It's fantastic. I love the work, it just love.
I couldn't imagine it looking like this good with the lighting.
These hooks really beautifully mirror the feathers. Then there's the more obvious association.
I'm fascinated how many.
There's, I think, 350 hooks or something I calculated that are in there. So that was the equivalent to like 3 months of captures. I sourced the hooks locally, so I didn't have nearly as many as I wanted. Of course, I had to use what I had, because all of them are old hooks. All of them have been in the ocean.
Even though there are fewer hooks than you were hoping for, it doesn't look like anything's missing.
People might not see that the rusty hooks, each one has had that potential.
There will be some that are, it's the first time they've been put in the water and they catch a bird. And there'll be others that have been fishing hundreds of trips out and they've never caught a bird. But when it happens, it's got a huge impact.
It's been changed. It looked so good yesterday. It was lit up, we lit it up. So, I don't know, a little bit pissed off. Where even is the light that was there? I almost want to hold my phone light on it so you can see it. Wow, that's much better already. It's like they've forgotten this as an artwork. Maybe this will make people focus on it. We were meant to make an interactive artwork.
No, that's true.
Look, we can make a light display. It's a performance work. Yeah, it's a shame the lighting guy wasn't here.
You've been working on something.
Yeah, I guess it's cool in a different way. It is, but yeah.
It is cool. In a different way. Not like what you were trying to achieve, but it's cool in a different way. And
Exactly.
it can go back to being cool in the way that you planned for all the rest of its life.
I still really like how the work is, and I'm getting lots of good feedback about how cool people think it is and relevant and the ideas behind it and stuff. So it's not missing its point or anything. So and not changing its context hugely so that people don't get it. So I think that's kind of like a cool unforeseen aspect, considering there's no lighting. Yeah, different but good.